This is a match plane, a Stanley 48 match plane. It cuts a tongue and a groove, and it's a cool plane. If you're interested in trying that, you could also do that. A compass plane, which I own, but I've never used until I did this board right here. I sharpened it up, cleaned it up just for tonight, waxed it, and it actually works. I'm a little surprised, frankly. I got it, somebody gave it to me, and then I've got 3 Stanley 45s here. One set up as a rabbet, one set up as a plow, and one set up as a beater, and I got a sample of what they would do. So the 45, you can set that up to do anything. I mean, it'll work as a match plane. It'll work like this moving Philister or the rabbet planes. You can get hollow and round knives for it, blades. So I mean, it'll do everything, and it's pretty fun. I've spent enough time to get them to work. What I got here is some side bead planes, and that cuts a bead right on the side. You can see, right on the left side of this here, you're right, there's a bead that it cuts along the edge of a board. You'd see that on, say you've got a back frame on a back on a panel that's individual boards that are joined with a tongue and groove or a rabbet. A lot of times they do a side bead right along those edges to kind of define the edges. And this, if you're cutting a bead, this is just super fast to use this. I'm reminded, how easy some of these older tools are to use after I got some of these out and use them rather than just show them or have them sitting on a shelf. They're fast. I mean, you can pull that out, cut a bead in a few minutes, and be on your way. I've got 2 dado planes. This is about a 1/4 inch. It cut this groove right here. And I got a 3/4 there also. Those have got a lot of moving parts in them. Feel free to look at that. This is a plow plane, which just cuts a groove somewhere in a board. It's very similar to that moving Philister or to a sash Philister plane, except that it doesn't have cutters to cut across grain. This only cuts with the grain. And then I got a couple shooting boards set up. This is R62 here. Feel free to try that. This is a Veritas shooting plane. And then I got a couple old wooden planes. I got a good wooden plane collection, a jack plane and a smoother. You can try those on the cedar. They're really, again, those are really, you get that out and try it and go, hey, I should use these wooden planes once in a while because they're light and they're smooth. They're really kind of fun to use.
So these tools are really used mostly to do the finishing touches on joinery. So first ones are the rabbet planes, the router plane. So there's these 2 are both Stanleys. This one's a little older. It's a Stanley 71 and 71 and a half. So the only really difference between the 2 is the 71 and a half is closed at the front. So if you needed something that had to be open, you'd want to get the 71. So they come with different blades. So you can take a look at the different blades. They're used a lot. So I just put some dados in this board last night. On the table saw, I intentionally didn't want it flat, but you'll find as hard as you try to make them flat, you don't get them flat. And so that's really the job of these. 2, here's a small one, very nice little brass one. Veritas has their miniature stuff, so you can take a look at this. It's really all the same. So last night I'm working on a small little drawer that I'm going to add to a toolbox, and I had 1/4 inch grooves. This is the tool I took to clean the bottom of those grooves. So if it's 1/4 1/4 inch or under, I'll go grab this little thing. It works actually fantastic. Then we go into shoulder planes. So these are all shoulder planes. Most of these are, I don't know, antique is not of the new ones. They're Stanleys. These 4 are Stanleys. So there's a 3/4 inch wide. So if you had a 3/4 inch joint in, if you had a 3/4 inch groove, maybe a little bit wider, 32nd wider, you could absolutely use this to go and clean up the bottom of that. So I was working on a piece last week that had 2 pieces that would sit down into something, so I cleared the other material out. I actually went and grabbed a shoulder plane because it wasn't exactly I did it on a router table and it wasn't perfect, so this was the tool I went to grab and clean it up. So very, very nice. This little rabbet that goes around doesn't quite match, and it's not off a lot, okay, but it takes just a little bit of time with those planes to clean it up. This is an antique one, so I don't know, I'm going to guess it's probably from the 30s, so it's really been beat up, okay. So the fill was originally rosewood fill, and it got beat up and somebody put wood putty in there or something to clean it up. So I cleaned it up, sharpened the iron, and it works just fine. If you buy an old tool, any of these, but especially these shoulder planes, the most important thing to do is you want this to be one surface. So this surface needs to be one, and you end up sanding it on a surface plate with sandpaper to get it perfectly flat. And once it's perfectly flat, it'll work as good or better than the first day that you bought it. So then you want to get your iron sharpened. What's that? The last thing I brought is spokeshaves. I don't think people are very familiar with spokeshaves. I'm not sure, we'll find out. So I have 3 different spokeshaves. I think these are, they're 151s. One's a record, I'm not sure if the other one's a record or a Stanley. I think this is Stanley 151, and here's a record. It's a A151. So what these are, these 2 are the same but different, okay? So this one has a flat bottom, and doesn't mean you can't use it on curved work, it's just a little bit different to use. This one will have a curved bottom. And then I was introduced to, this is a small one, made in Australia. It's just a real sweet little tool. So it's got an older brother, okay, so this is the small one. We've got another one that's about 1 inch or 1 1/4 inch wide. So spokeshaves are used to work on curved work. So I just grabbed a piece of walnut and that's actually, so if you're interested, you can just come over and we can just, you should really spend some time and play with them. Just, if you haven't used them before, the introduction's really kind of fun, and you're really welcome to try any of these. And it goes pretty quick. It's pretty surprising. So that's what I brought. to show you, and we'll play around with them and stuff. That's what I've got.
For over 8,000 years, they started out being bronze and copper, and they've evolved a lot throughout the years. I have quite an assortment. Some of the things that are different about some of these chisels are their tang, how the chisel is put together, the quality of the steel that's used nowadays as to back in the 50s or even the 70s. There's a number of different uses that are particular for one kind of chisel or another, and we're going to talk about some of that. The other thing that I found out is that chisels are the #1 hand tool that helps people get to the emergency ward. More than any other tool in your workshop, the chisel is going to, it's at the leader of the pack. And so we had a class a few weeks ago, and there were some people that have been doing woodwork for quite a while, and there were a number of Band-Aids throughout the class by the end of the week. So that's something to keep these chisel, when it's operational, is absolutely razor sharp. You have to respect it just like everything else. And so I guess the only other thing I'd say about chisels is that the best chisel for you as a woodworker or me as a woodworker is the chisel that you're going to use, that you're comfortable using. It doesn't care who made it, what kind of tang it has, how wide it is. It's how it feels in your hand, and if you're comfortable using it. So everybody could pick a different chisel and say, this is the only chisel I would ever use, and they're all right. So that's the thing to keep in mind, is that you can have the most expensive chisel in the world, and if you're not going to use it, you're using it for a paperweight, and you can find one at a garage sale that you polish it up and put an edge on it, and that's the first one you're going to grab. So we'll talk about that, and we'll look at some of these and the differential between the rude, crude chisels and some of the ones that really are just a pleasure to hold in your hand. So, go ahead.
That's a Lee Valve or a Veritas, and they seem to sharpen better, and they hold an edge better than the A2s, which the A2 is the Lee Nielsen. And some people say that A2 steel is prone to chipping because it's so hard. So I think the Veritas, that TMV11 is a pretty good chisel. Yeah, I'd like to get a set of those.
And these are different again. I mean, there's
Yeah, and these are this one here. These are both blue spruce. And pull that one, Chuck. See, that's like yeah.
he makes really fine tools.
So I ordered one time. What did I buy here one time? Oh, wait. So this is a Nerex. That's a 1/4-inch chisel, just to show you the difference. I ordered this because I needed a brand new. I was working on a project, and I thought, okay, and I'm used to this kind of weight, and they put a club on the end of it.
And there's two different types. There's the bevel up, which is, we're all very familiar with low angle block planes. And these bevel up are just adult versions of the low angle block plane. We're going to talk about, I'm going to talk about how changing the angle of your sharpening on a low angle block plane or low angle plane will make a big difference in how it cuts and what you can use it for. And then we'll just kind of go over the parts and pieces of the regular bench planes, kind of talk about what they're best suited for, and the difference between some of the bench planes. Like this is a bedrock plane. This is a 604, and this is a regular Bailey plane, and I'll show you some of the differences between the bedrock and the Bailey plane. The bedrock plane is the plane that Tom Lee Nielsen copied for his planes. They were kind of the best of the breed of the Stanley planes. There's some debate about whether a bedrock is actually functionally better than a regular Bailey plane, and there are some things that do make it functionally better. As far as actually making them work, the Bailey and the bedrock will do pretty much the same jobs for you. It's just some of the setup that's going to be a little easier with the bedrock plane. So that's what we're going to talk about, is the difference between a bevel up and a regular plane. And I've got some chunks of wood here. You can try the planes out. I've got some end grain. I'll show you what can be done with alloying a plane as far as cutting end grain. And then I've got this little curiosity here that there might be somebody here that knows what it is, but most people have never seen one of these before. And so we'll mess around with that a little bit. A router plane goes hand in hand with what this plane is, just to give you a little hint. So that's basically it. So you folks can just kind of, we'll man our stations here.
This is the least sophisticated plane in the room today. I got started on spokeshave mostly because we were talking about this getting together, and everybody said, well, somebody should do the spokeshave. Has anybody ever used one? And I stupidly raised my hand because I had been out at I do some volunteer work for the Avon Folk School, who allowed me to borrow their shaving horse. But I did about 2 hours on this thing at a street fair in St. Joseph. They had a big booth up, and they said, will you go out and show them how this works? And I was, sure. So basically, I spent 2 hours turning sticks into sticks. Essentially, I would peel the bark off of it, and they would turn them into walking sticks, and they would give them to the kids that were at the street fair. And as I told Don, they made the mistake of cutting these at an angle, so the walking sticks became spears quite soon after I handed that to them. What else can I say about that? People don't use these very much anymore. I mean, literally one of the simplest tools you can find. The people that do use them are bowyers, is that the word? People who make bows?
Okay, bodgers use them a lot, and that's chair makers. Bodgers.
Oh yeah, and of course the more important thing is they're very important for making cricket bats, which I'm sure is important to everybody here.
Big demand here for
What?
big demand here for cricket.
Yeah. So actually the shaving horse itself is a little more complicated than the blade. If I had longer legs, I could, And by the way, this is really comfortable to sit on for 2 hours. But it's basically designed to debark stuff, That's digging in probably more than I would want to. But I've used it to debark things that I'm working on, especially raw logs and stuff. The thing I learned before I came out and to talk about it is that there are bevel up and bevel down spokeshaves, which I did not know until I started watching videos about it. So the way to determine a bevel up versus a bevel down is lining up a board on the flat side of the blade. It's a pretty good board. Wish I had a ruler. And if it comes about even with the handles, then that is let's see if I remember right. That's a bevel down. If it, let's see, this is the one I used for 2 hours, and only to realize that it isn't very sharp. Well, that's about, well, these are all pretty much even. A lot of them will go like that. If you let it up with the flat side, it's going to come at an angle to the handles, and that would be a bevel up. Did I say bevel up right? Yeah. Anyways, bevel down for these is for scooping. So if you're smoothing out something you just cut, that smoothing like I did with a bandsaw on this, it's good for that. And did I say bevel? I keep getting confused. That was bevel down. Bevel up is just for, oh, that is sharp.